Welcome back to the channel. All right, it's time for the Tech Top 10 Champions. We do this semi-annually. We take a break from the general tier list that we do monthly in June and December in order to do these top 10s. And I always pull my Discord server. People with roles of honor are able to nominate champions, and then everyone on the server can vote. It is incredibly helpful. I've learned a lot from it because there's so many smart players playing the game at a variety of levels, paces, whatever term you want to use. This is their top 10. It's phenomenal, and it is great. Now, if you're like, we've already heard the introductions from Baron Vega and all of that. We get it. We know how you tabulated. Go ahead. You can go. There's a timestamp in the description. You can jump straight to my rankings. But the one thing I want to make sure everyone always hears in every video is the best champion is the one that you enjoy most. When you look at this, if you use this for your own rank up advice and opinion, go ahead, give your champion a 20 out of 0 right next to where it says my favorite champion. And that's going to help you end up with the best champion for you to rank up. All right. Let's go ahead and this is Baron Vega. Vega's asked me to do the introduction and explanation of his metric system that he and his friends from SSX came up with. In general, every champion is given a total score out of 40. I have been given a 31, which although I've been told is extremely good, I do believe it should be significantly higher, and I'm sure you agree with me. General is a possible 10 out of 10. This is essentially just how good is the champion. We all kind of intuitively know it. How many powerful abilities do they have? If new content comes out, are they some of the first champions you think of? Battlegrounds. It's an important mode. Great rewards and a chance to really use your roster and strategy and knowledge of this game. There's a possible 10 points in your defensive capabilities of your champions was able to be included. I'm a great defender and a fantastic attacker. Therefore, I got an 8 out of 10. It should be a 10, but it's an 8. I'll take that up with Vega later. In war, you are not allowed to include your defensive prowess in the score. It is also out of 10 points. I've been given an 8, which as we all know is ridiculous, but I am told that it means this is a reliable attacker that is used often to take a variety of nodes and defenders, and you frequently see them used in high tier war. Long form content. Necropolis has the best rewards in the game, and long form has a total score possibility of 5. Again, I should be a 5 out of 5, but they've given me a 3, meaning I was either able to be used consistently for a fight or two, or maybe very good in one lane in Necropolis, or I was good in Gauntlet or EOP. I happen to know I was phenomenal in all of them, and Vega is just wrong here, but that's fine. We'll move on. And then ease of use is a possible total 3 points. 3 meaning you are easy. Think of your archangels. I bet that Cabro gets a 3 out of 3. That guy is mindless and simple. And then the toughest is a 1, meaning your tigers and your Kate bishops. And I am too smart to ask anyone to spend that much time trying to learn how to play me. A 2 is just right. And this is the 1 score, aside from the 10 out of 10, that Vega got correct. It's time to do the top 10 tech champions. Now, the most astute of you, or those of you who've seen this already, will know Baron Vega definitely leaked. This metric used to have a best of 40. It's now 38. That guy, he just loves controversy. He loves leaking things. He loves this stuff. You can't stop it from him, and I'm grateful for him. I really love him. But we did tune down easy use, so it's best 3 out of 3. All right, let's jump into this. Well, I want to do our honorable mentions first. They did miss out, just so you know, that the honorable mentions only ended up with scores of 23, which is still a phenomenal score. Very powerful champs. You can clear a lot with them, but they weren't that close. They weren't at 24. But those 3 were Ultron, Lady Deathstrike, Mysterio with the Penny Parker synergy, okay, and Red Skull. That buff is very, very good. I see people saying it's not good, and we all like different things, but I think it's good, just so you know, just so in case you're out there and you want to maybe revisit it. All right, number 9 champion is none other than Starkey, right? If you're like, what? How could that be possible? Go check out Campo's Campo MC. Phenomenal champ. I've been talking about you because I've been friends with this guy for so long. Phenomenal player, incredible person. He just ascended as Starkey, and it's like, it's wild, and it's so cool. For so many of us who've been playing the game for a very long time, Spider-Man Stark Enhanced was one of those first champions. I know for me, he was the first one, like, oh my God, this guy's different. And he really is very, very powerful. It's like they packed more in, and it's weird to only have him at an 8 out of 10, but that was a very long time ago, and power creep is a thing in this game. But he's a very powerful champion. Battlegrounds, 8 out of 10. You ascend him and you can play him like Campo, probably a 9. He's very, very good, especially with the Relic. This is another champion where Battlegrounds and Relics I think have brought them back. Then not that they became bad, but it's reminding us of how powerful they are. And then Relics adds a whole other thing with his stun loops. War 6. I mean, I remember a few years ago even using them, and people can pull them out now, but there's often a tech champion that's going to be better and able to take other fights for you. Long form, that does not seem to be his thing. We'll see, though, if that changes in 2024, and easy use too. Now, and Campo did a great job of showing this in his video. A lot of the fights we see with Starkey, the person just immediately backs himself into the corner and evades. So that means playing a wall, right? That's a lot of wall play, and that can get dangerous fast. If you're not comfortable with that, you don't have to do it. You can parry, maybe even 5-hit combo or parry and heavy. Get your, I can't think of what he calls it, but get that on the cooldown running so you can use it again. I mean, you're going to kind of like make the AI wake up a little bit, and then you won't have to go all the way to the wall and just stand on the wall and do your evades for a long time. Sure, it might cost you another 2 or 3 seconds, but it's not a bad idea. Extremely powerful champion. Those shocks off the SP2 as well. Let's go ahead and move on to, there's a large tie. Tech has gotten very good. And has a lot of depth. This is kind of reminding me of the skill class, just not as good overall, but the depth is definitely there, and they're very formidable. So let's move on to the other 9s. We got quite a few of them. All right. Hopefully you've had a chance to see my 2 videos on Banquet, and you'll know why the smile on my face is bigger than it normally is. It's usually pretty big. Shocker. This champion, I actually really liked him before he even got buff. I took him immediately to rank 46200. The designer of this champion does a phenomenal job. And like I said, I liked him even before his buff. Now his buff though, whoo-hoo, that's like proof where the rebalance team wants us to have a good time, because Shocker is all about having a good time. Does seem to be a very good, not amazing, but a very good answer to Onslaught, who's like the newest, baddest defender in the game. Shocker does not, like, this is really cool. Like, I do think he's about a 7 out of 10 in general, right? He's got the whole no crit thing and things like that. He does have an immunity, but there's not a ton of other stuff going on, but he's so well built, so well done, that he's almost more powerful than his parts would lead you to believe. In Battlegrounds, I think the score may go up. I think we may have a 9. Curious if we get it to 10, but that's something I will be wanting to test over the next few months and see if we can't get that score a little higher as we head to June of 2024. In War, I'd love to get that a little higher too, but I do think 8's probably where we've got him at, because again, remember that limited utility, and that's something that can really hurt a champion. Long form, that doesn't seem to be his deal. You get to that SP2, or you don't even have to. A lot of people like MSD, Grass, I believe, have shown using his heavy without just going for this big, massive heavy off of the SP2. So I shouldn't say that, but he is about cash out moments. He is often about cashing out moments. I don't see him being a long form option no matter what comes our way. And then ease of use, he's about a 2. There is some strategy to him. He's not a parry heavy champion, and he's not Tigra. Big fan of Shocker. I hope a lot of you pulled him with those Banquet crystals of late. All right, let's move on to more champions tied at number 9. Number 9, none other than Penny Parker. She's a story of a dominant defender coming in. As a community, we started to find ways to go to fight her. I remember I used to take her on, it was Path 7 in War with my Spider-Man 2099, and it was always like, in the beginning anyways, it was the fight that always got my adrenaline going. I loved that fight. It just was so exciting. It's like, for me, what War was all about. Fighting a champion like her and having to hit her block. And, there's so many ways the fight could go wrong, but if you played well, you could get her down. And then Gallon came out, and Gallon just pretty much just obliterated Penny. He made her go bye-bye. And then we got Gore, and I think Vox now too. Hulkling also destroys her. And these aren't champions that were like, hey, they're good. They have things that can help manage what she does and help you out. They were like, we're just going to destroy her defensive use. Now, fortunately for Penny, she's very good offensively, and not just for Nick Fury. She has immunities, and she has a nice, massive, actually, incinerate damage off of her SP2. She has a synergy with Idun, who is not going to be on this list, thankfully. I'm very happy about that. Where you can use to change her damage source in case the opponent is immune to incinerate. She's got a really nice job with her sync shield, where she can help you out in case you make a mistake, or some real synergies where I think she even goes stun immune should she have them. I think that's with Falcon, who's a strong champion. I think she's very deserving of that General 7 Battlegrounds. You can still trick someone up. If they don't have any of those Cosmic Champions or any of these other answers, you can get someone with her. And she's fast enough in Battlegrounds she can be used. I enjoy using her. In War, She's got those immunities, so that's really helpful for her. In long form, that's just not her jam. And ease of use, I think she's a 2. So she is really well regarded. 25 being in the top 10, tied at number 9 in a very strong class of tech. It honestly makes me happy to see Guardian still on here. He was the first champion I ever tried to seriously cover as an MCoC YouTuber. This goes back years ago. I went out and got him. I saw how powerful he was. And, and I've talked to you about this. I just wasn't that good at YouTube and I wasn't that great at the game. So I had trouble explaining why he was so good, but I knew that he was. And it's really cool for me to see him still up at this level. Now, I think he's another example of a champion where Battlegrounds has helped remind us of how good he is. They haven't made the champion better, but they've reminded us how good they are. And it's another mode where we can use them, right? It's not like War, you only use 3, Questing, you only use 5, AQ, you only use 3, Incursions, you're only using 3, and Battlegrounds, you're using 30, and often more than that, depending on them as the meta shifts. And so it's given us an opportunity to be like, oh, Guardian's actually a kind of tough defender, and man, so much damage off that SP2, and he gets to it relatively quickly. He's also one of the first champions in my memory that is asking us to parry specials, and you really can get him going so much faster and better if you do that. My buddy Spinnaker, I haven't spoken to Spinnaker in a long time. What's up there, Spin? Just on the off shot you were watching. Did a great video on Guardian, way better than the ones I had put out at that time, showing how you can use him, how to utilize that. I felt like it was such a high skill ask at the time. And as we go farther on in this, you'll see that one of my favorite champions has that same ask. I think he's extremely powerful, especially if you've got that signature ability up. Definitely deserving of that 8. He's a great in Battlegrounds. Like I say, he's a bit of a dual threat in War. I always, I used to always ask my planners, can I use Guardian? Can I use Guardian? Can I use Guardian? And I did, all the big names, I've played for so many big name planners right out there. I'm not going to name because I'll forget someone. But they would often relent and be like, okay, Vega, you can use Guardian. So that was always fun. He's not for long form because he's got that big cash out. And I know some of you are going to be like, no. I build this all up and I get it. Yeah, but that takes you forever. Okay. And it is really cool. I'm not taking that away from you. It is really cool. I love seeing it. But when you really think about it and you're going to go like in an Acropolis or something like that, you're not ringing Guardian. Easy use 2. He has a high skill ask, and if you want these scores that we're showing for him, you're going to need to know how to play him well. But you don't have to play him well, and you can get some good results out of him. So 2 feels very, very good for him. All right, let's move on to, I think it is finally the last champion tied at the 9th spot. None other than Hulkbuster. I love seeing this, and I've talked about, like, when Karate Mike used him in Acropolis. I mean, I was already a big fan of Karate Mike. I was already a big fan of that guy. But I just I put him in the Hall of Fame. He's in the Hall of Fame for me. I don't know how to say I became a bigger fan of Mr. Karate Michael there. But when I saw that, because Hulkbuster is one of these champions that for years I've been saying he's really good. I had him in the second highest tier of my tech tier list. We do monthly, right? We do the general tier list monthly. We're doing that for 3 years now. And I've had him in the second highest tier. And people also be like, Hulkbuster, what do you know? I'd be like, I can tell. I can tell he's really good, but I never had it in me to really take him to the highest rank that was possible. I just didn't. I wish I had. And it was amazing to see Mike, a player as talented as him, go in and just crush it with him. In general, he's an 8. The signature ability, so many nuggets of utility and power control are tied up in this champion. And he's a very fun play. And I think he's relatively easy to use, as you can see with that 2 out of 3 and easy use. In Battlegrounds, and some of you are like, wait a minute, why is it in Battlegrounds? Well, some of it does rely on the stun, right? And you're having to start to deal with Limber because of the defensive placements, and I think that's why you don't see him more in War. It doesn't mean you can't. Remember, 6 is a good score, but that's about where we have him in both of those contests. Long form, you can't ignore what Michael did. So definitely a 3 out of 5. Now, those fights were a little longer, and Mike played him exceptionally well. And so that's where you end up with a 25. This is tied for the 9th best champion in a class that is very, very strong. Really cool for me to see Hulkbuster up there like this. I love seeing it. It was one of those really nice surprises about tabulating all this out, creating a scoring system, and then breaking it out into different columns and creating this metric. Number 8, Viv Vision. Remember, all the scoring is based on you playing them exceptionally well. And if you play her well, you will be richly rewarded. I really like her. She's a champion that I've multiple times picked up and been like, I want to start playing her better. Like, wow, I can't believe so much power is in one champion. And then I start to play her and I'm like, oh yeah, that's why. You make one mistake and you get absolutely crushed. But general power, definitely a 7, could maybe arguably even go up to an 8. You play her well in Battlegrounds. And she even has some defensive capability as well. You kind of almost want to make sure you have a counter to make the fight go quickly. In War, played well, definitely could take a variety of fights on the map. A 9, long form, that's not her jam. She's a cash out champion. Ease of use to get these scores, definitely a 1. There might be some time in 2024, especially if she was to come out as a 7-star. Where I could see in 2024, not 2021, in 2024, I could see us start talking about it instead of saying like, well, she's not as tough to play as Tigra. I can see us being like, well, they're not as tough to play as Viv Vision. She is very, very tough to play. You have to know what you're doing. The min max is strong with her. One mistake and you got problems. But if you don't make those mistakes, you can play her exceptionally well. Check out Simula's channel to see some really great Viv Vision gameplay. All right, let's move on to the number 7 champion. Number 7 champion is Iron Man. Hopefully hopefully you've seen my videos on him. I have him as a maxed out 6-star. I did not ascend him yet. I might, but he's available in the 7-star crystals. That might be the thing that holds off, at least for a while. I think he is phenomenal. I even had a video where I called him like a potential Nimrod replacement. They're not a 1-for-1, but a lot of what you're using Nimrod for, I think you could use Iron Man for, and Iron Man can even do other things. He's extremely powerful. The damage gets very, very high. He's got those armor breaks off the SP1. He can handle even some mystic sort of things with his armor ups. A general, I feel very confident, comfortable with the 9. Some people are even didn't realize he actually has immunities. He does. So keep that in mind as well. Battleground 7, I kind of wanted to put him higher, but he does take a little while to get ramped up. So I get that. The other thing is he's a tricky defender. I've won a lot of matchups with him on defense. So it was a bit of a dual threat. In War, you saw me use him in War last season, I believe it was. Yeah, last War season. I did a video for almost every single War except for one. He was prominent in so many of them, taking very, very tough fights. Showed off the tankiness of him as well, too. Now, he's got that skill ask of pairing specials. I thought it would be much more difficult than it was. It's something that once I started consciously trying to do and get better at, it wasn't bad. And oddly enough, it kind of helped me with specials in general. So I really liked it. I think it's a good skill ask. It's something that will help you skill up your game. Long form content, I am aware that he has been used to take out Storm X and I believe Sauron as well. So he obviously has some use and the damage can ramp, right? Which if you can keep his armor up, so you can pause them and then you can start stacking those armor breaks, the damage gets very, very high. In which case, he's a 1, ease of use. Not as tough to use as like Vivision or Tigra, but there's more to it than a lot of our 2s, especially if you want those scores that we've got this, for General Battlegrounds War in long form. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to our 6th rated champion. Amazing to see a champion as old as this still being this good, and he really, truly is. And I think as a 7-star, he's just going to continue on his life and his prestige in MCoC within the MCoC community. 29, score of 7 in general. A lot of that's due to the fact that I think some of the use, some of the reason why we've seen him used as much is player versus player mode. But he's still very strong, very good for questing those sorts of things without that. An 8 in Battlegrounds, a decent defender, right? Problematic if they don't have a good counter with all those buffs or in the armor breaker and that sort of thing. And you can obviously use him offensively. He's a little bit slow for some of those fights, but against some of the more pesky mutant defenders, he's very good. War 9, right? People use them over and over. You put those power back boosts on. You can use recoil. You've seen me do it. You've seen, I'm sure, quite a few people do it. Long form, he can be used. I think, if I remember correctly, he was used for 1 or 2 of the Eternity of Pain fights this last summer, the Summer of Pain, or things like that. So he's got that potential. At least want to recognize that. Ease of use. He's not full parry heavy, but it's about as good as it gets. And if you can learn to re-parry, he's even better, in my opinion. So get those skills down. He's going to reward you. Really nice champion. Happy. See him. Happy. I'm very happy. But I do like having him up this high. It makes sense to me. Number 6, my own personal, just purely me. Iron Man would be higher than Warlock, but I really did listen to the advice and the experience and the knowledge of the group that helped me out with this. So Warlock is 1 spot higher than Iron Man. Let's go ahead and move on to what's a large 3-way tie for number 3. When the votes were tabulated, when I took everyone's opinion and advice, when I put out my score, and then everyone kind of like basically attacked that. In fact, I often use the phrase like, have at it, boys, because I want them to tear apart my rankings. Now, 1, Omega Sentinel was higher than I would have guessed she had been. But that was just based on the scores I gave her. Hopefully you're aware, I've been a massive Omega Sentinel fan for a very long time. Basically, since she came into the game, I think she's phenomenal. And then the group came back, and in some instances, they were like, actually, Vega, you don't have her higher enough here. You should have her higher there. I use her for this. It was very, very cool, because it was one of these champions where I've just kind of been like, I think she's great, guys. and all these people come out and saying it. Now I've shown her in EOP, I've used her in War. It was kind of cool because she's one of my favorites, and she's also one of the ones that like I just didn't have enough to just be like, no, she's a top tier tech. But here we are. And you look at these scores, it makes sense. When you look at all of her various pre-fights that she can use all of them in the fight, then her like pseudo immunities and her tankiness and the going to the SP3 route, which really gives her a very simple play style. 9 makes a ton of sense. People were talking about various ways to use her in Battlegrounds. She can be a semi-tricky defender. I know a lot of people have her down, and a lot of those cosmics that are destroying Penny Parker can also be used to destroy her. But you could still place her, and she can trip up some people. And then offensively, she can take Ebony Maws and not just her desired or her designed mutant defenders as well. In War, she's used often. I used her all the time when I was in 4 Loki. PWF used to assign her to me very, very frequently. She's good in long form. Like I said, you go to that SP3 route, you get up all those incinerates, and then you can just keep them up. And then ease of use, she's a 2. She's like a perfect 2. She's not just parry heavy, but she's not one where you got to know all the spacing and all of these things. She's a phenomenal champion. And I was really happy to see the numbers actually play out. And not just the numbers are like, let's rate her abilities, more of like, how are we actually using her? As the people are playing the game, as the challenges that are being set forth for us by other players, the PvP modes, and by Kabam, the nodes and the sets that are being used and the quests they're designing, how are we actually using her? And her scores completely made up. Like, there was actually no disagreement. No one was saying like, she's a little high. Like I said, in fact, if anything, people were saying like, Vega, you need to move her up. Very, very cool. She is a 6-star that I will very much look to take to rank 5 soon, possibly ascend. She's not available as a 7-star. I actually happen to like her signature ability, so it makes that make even more sense. Really pumped up on this. Is here tied as a 3rd best tech champion in the game. Now, I think the 3 tied for 3rd make complete sense, and they're so different, and they have different value sets, and so much of them come down to what you enjoy in this game. Nimrod, and when it was like the day it came out, and I put out the videos on him, I was like, this guy is the tech Human Torch. Then a lot of people were like, no, that's crazy. And then a lot of people were like, well, wait, hold on, let's listen. And then I explained, and they're like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Because he was to mutants in prowess and healing what Torch was to mystics and energy damage. Nimrod just ramps and he just dominates it. He crushes it like Nimrod would. They did a good job. And you get that signature ability up and he just is crushing people, right? He's crushing healing, prowess, mutants. Healing, prowess, mutants. He just dominates it. And I was like, oh, it's pretty, to me, it was just obvious. Like I played him, I was like, oh my God. But he doesn't have the breadth of an Omega Sentinel. She's not crushing anything quite like he is. But he doesn't have her breadth. So it depends on which one do you want. I even did videos because I happened to do, I remember this was a few war seasons back. I think it was in 4 Loki at the time, where I was like, which one's better? Because I happened to use Nimrod in one war, and then like literally the next war I used to make a Sentinel, or vice versa. And I kind of gave an conclusion. I'm like, they're pretty much of similar value. It's just, what do you need? Who's the best tool for the job? Nimrod, definitely a 10 out of 10 general because he's just so brute force powerful in those matchups. Battlegrounds, he's a good defender. I don't like fighting him. And the mutant defenders that we often see are the ones he crushes. So there's also that. War, he's a staple war attacker. Long form, I don't think he's got much value. There are a couple fights, I think, like in Necropolis, so maybe you can move him up to a 2 if you wanted to, and you can be like, see, he's better than a Mega Sentinel, and that's fine. This isn't meant for argument. This is more to entertain, but also to teach, right? And to learn from. So if you want to move him up there and give him a 31, that's fine with me. I wouldn't argue that too much. And then ease of use. Again, a perfect 2. All right, let's move on to the 3rd champion who's tied for 3. It's Ghost. And I know this is going to surprise a lot of you. It really surprised me because I was ready to just be number 1. Don't even think about it. It's definitely Ghost. But again, as we did the rankings, it just made sense. Like, how are we actually using this champion as the game has evolved, as Kabam has evolved the modes and the nodes and the defenders and the ass out of us? It made perfect sense. 10 out of 10, of course, general. She's phenomenal. She's still someone that when a quest comes out or it's difficult or anything, she's still someone that I think for. And I'm sure most of us do. Battlegrounds, if you play her very well, she's an 8, but there's often decks she's just not in. Meta, she's just not in. Like, think about it. It's true. War, you can play her well. You know, Andy's showing this. I think so many players are. I'm not going to name everyone because I'm going to forget someone. And then long form, that's not her jam. It's just not her jam. And right now, Necropolis is such a big deal. And it sounds like there will be other EOP style fights or just something more than questing, but obviously not Necropolis. It might come our way in 2024. So as of right now, I feel comfortable giving long form the possibility of 5. If that doesn't happen over 2024, we'll probably move long form to about 3 points to reflect how important it actually is. And then ease of use. She's incredibly difficult to use, especially when you think about Battlegrounds, where she doesn't get to come in with any of her synergies, but players who learn it are richly rewarded. This is just kind of an example of not necessarily power creep, but the game evolving, the ass evolving. And what I've talked about with champions like Hyperion, where they're still incredibly powerful and they're in the top 10. That's a big deal in a game with 250 champions. But there's these little asks that modern champions have, these little abilities that modern champions have that often get asked for that make them, in my opinion, more valuable to your account. All right, let's move on because we have a tie at number 1. Shuri. I put out the video telling you she was phenomenal. She was amazing. I think I put out 2 of them doing Battlegrounds. Then I did another one, and then I've shown her in War. Then we did the predicted champions to be good in Necropolis, and she was my number 1 prediction. And she has absolutely not disappointed me in any of these. I've used her in every single lane in Necropolis. There are fights where people said like, oh, this champion's great, this champion's great. I've brought them in. I've tried them. And I was like, I'm just going to use Shuri. Shuri. She has so many bits and nuggets of utility that we are often asked for. If the game stopped asking us for them, then I think her value would fall. It's just that she has them. The design of Shuri is phenomenal. Like, I wish I could tell you who it was because they have done a phenomenal job with so many champions. I love their champions. 10 out of 10. It's just what she has is so highly valued and asked for in MCoC. Battlegrounds. She really could be higher, but she's a little bit slow. Think of like the issue with Doom and Hercules. But a good defender has problematic asks, something where you often want an RPG counter for her. And then she can handle some of the most troublesome mutants offensively, like Domino. And she can do more, like a Tuma. We've shown that. I've shown you the videos of it. She's phenomenal. She's great. War. Again, so many of the asks that the MCoC asks out of us, other players ask of us for a PvP map, a war map, a Battlegrounds. Shuri handles them. There it is. Long form. I just told you, like, she's been on my team. She's been a staple on my team. I've done 3 pass. She's been a staple for all of them. And I have a feeling she's going to be on the rest of them too. We'll see. Ease of use. Not a parry heavy champion. Not Tigra. Just right. You know, she's the Goldilocks there. The ease of use is the 2. Shuri is phenomenal. And I feel very confident and comfortable saying tied for the best tech champion in the game in 2023, December 2023. Who's she tied with? Let's check it out. Future Ant-Man. B McG's been telling us since like day 1. I remember this was one of my bad calls. If I have the time, I'm going to put together the best and worst of 2023, and this will be one of the worst. I have video footage of me in a tier list saying like, I think his damage is going to be a little low. It seems like he needs to ramp up. He sounds like more of a long form champion. I could not have been more wrong. And I'm an adult and I can admit it. 10 out of 10 in general, right? Especially when you start adding his signature ability. Battlegrounds, he is a staple in all the decks. An annoying defender, I feel like I have his evades down, and then it feels like the next day they're slightly different. I don't believe that's actually accurate, but it feels like his special evades just like change slightly by the day. I haven't noticed a pattern. If you feel the same way, let me know in the comments, because I definitely feel this way. In War, he's a staple attacker and a staple defender. Long form. Campo put out the video using Future Ant-Man in long form content. I believe MP Blaze did as well, and I would be shocked if B McG didn't also do it. Check all their channels. I know Campo put out a video of Future Ant-Man doing great work in Necropolis. Ease of use. He's got some things you need to learn. For some reason, he's not completely intuitive to me, and I still sometimes struggle with that a little bit. But when I get it right, the results are phenomenal. So if you can play that 2 out of 3 style, you're going to get amazing results from him. And I genuinely think he is the best tech champion in the game for what the game is asking us to do. Based on these columns, based on these modes, on the scoring system that I feel great about, he's the best. If he was my first tech rank 5, I'm sure I will ascend him at some point. If he was a 7-star, I would rake him up. As usual, let me know what you think we got right. Let me know what you think we got wrong. If there's anything that stood out to you that you learned, you're like, I did not know that, or wow, that was unique. I was also surprised, because that's been one of my favorites, is the surprises, the good and the ones that have hurt a little bit, where my favorite champions don't come up as high as I think they will. I would appreciate knowing. Let me know in the comments. Hope you're enjoying the series. I've had an absolute blast making. I had a blast making the graphics and all that stuff. Yeah, it's been an absolute blast. We're going to keep going. Make sure you check the playlist out so you can check out every single video in this series. Thank you so much for watching. Take care. Massive shout out and thank you to my boys over at SSX. So many of them spent a ton of time sharing their knowledge, their expertise, and their experience in these modes, and also helped me come up with the formula in order to rank these champions. Specific thank you and shout out to Bitterstill, Campo, DLL, Gara, Na, Odysseus, Outline, Royu, Shibi, Simula, The Strands, Zahid, Matt 2 Hill, and of course my boy, Egatron. All right, let's get to those rankings.